Russian forces seem to be stalled out in Orlivka, but that hasn't stopped Russian propaganda from going into overdrive. Plus, it seems like there's not even consensus over who actually controls the town. I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's get into it. Okay, so first, here's the control map. And what I thought was interesting is, again, we're looking at the updates in the last, 48 hours. And as you can see, moving it up to this afternoon of the 7th here in the US, we still have no real advances by Russian forces. In fact, the last update, again, is just trivial changes to the front line. And the most important front line, where there was talk, 2 weeks ago, we would be discussing a potential Russian breakthrough. And now it seems like Russian forces are quite literally mired in a swamp. You can see here is the town of Orlivka. And over here is this low ground, right? Where three rivers meet, and this forested region, almost certainly a swampy terrain in this season, right? The early spring, the mud is probably absolutely unbelievable. And this is where Russian forces are bogged down, literally. But you can see here in Orlivka, there's some debate. Right? It seems like the majority of the town, the buildings and such, are under Russian control, though the outskirts of the town are under Ukrainian control, and or at least are contested. And as we've talked about, though, holding Orlivka itself is potentially of marginal value, right? Ukraine may likely be using these rivers and natural obstacles to block Russian advances, in which case the town of Orlivka would actually not be something that Ukraine would want to hold on to long term, particularly if these buildings are in the lowest of the low ground. And that's going to be the part where they're most likely to be able to anchor their forces, so to speak. Now, what's interesting is that so when you go on Twitter, you're going to get hit with a lot of propaganda, period. And according to, depending on which source you go to, you're going to hear different things about who controls Orlivka. Germany seems to have assessed that Russian forces control Orlivka. The Ukrainians and the Russians themselves haven't said anything, which says that this is probably still contested, even potentially some of these areas. And I think Russia has learned its lesson from prematurely announcing that it's taken different towns. When Ukrainians have counterattacked and pushed them out, it looks embarrassing for the Russian armed forces. And so I think they're probably waiting until they control up to this river, which again, if I were a Ukrainian commander, I'd be like, listen, if we're not going to hold these buildings in Orlivka, maybe the ground is too low, they're already destroyed, they don't provide good cover and concealment. I would just say, listen, fighting retreat, don't hold Avdiivka. Instead, we're going to delay them, and we are going to deploy even more robust defenses here on the western side of this river. That is going to enable Ukrainians to really work over the Russians, who, in order to attack their positions at all, will have to conduct some level of river crossing. And especially if these areas here are controlled via dams, or what do they call causeways, like the locks in canals. If you blow those and you can really flood this region, you can create a situation where it's going to be a very difficult prospect for Russia to conduct bridge crossing operations at scale. So that's what I suspect is happening now. But again, there's also been there's been some really interesting footage here. Sorry, I YouTube very, very strict on this, on combat footage. Basically, I'm prohibited from showing any of it. I think it's actually because I'm not a news, what's the word I want? Like a conventional news channel. Anyway, guys, if you're interested in supporting the channel, given YouTube's increasingly restrictive policies, especially going into a U.S. election year, definitely news commentators, man, we are always targeted. Doesn't take much to be considered a purveyor of misinformation these days. And I am a boring to a fault reporter of the news here. But if you want to support me anyway, and you want the energy you need to tackle whatever's in front of you, in my case, a very, you know, a 5-month-old with a cold. And you know, to her, that's an absolute crisis. So, you know, I'm a little more tired than usual. But if you need some energy, some pick-me-up, Strike Gum's the way to go, right? That's what I'm taking after this. I'm going to chew a piece. 90 milligrams of caffeine in every piece, 100 milligrams of alpha GPC, 0 sugar, right? If you're spending $4 on an energy drink, this is the same amount of caffeine and no sugar, right? Plus it has alpha GPC for further cognitive enhancement. So you want to check it out, so go to strikegum.com. We've got all kinds of discounts, and we're going to be available on another channel coming soon, right? We're just finalizing everything. So check us out. Okay, so let's see if I can find this. Sorry, I'm going to try to pull this video up for you guys. But damn, you know, Elon Musk probably shouldn't have fired all those engineers. X or whatever, it's just been a mess. Okay, I can't show you the video, but this is footage. You can see it's literally watermarked RT. And what they're saying is that this is a Ukrainian attack across a big open field of dismounted infantry. You can see some of them are walking in a formation, some of them appear to just be kind of clustered up. But the thing to note is that the RT sources, of which there are a lot, are saying that this is dismounted Ukrainian infantry company crossing an open field east of Orlivka, and then it gets hit by a bunch of Grad missiles, and there's a lot of KIA, and it's just bad news, right? And this analyst here, who says that this is actually east of Orlivka and is Ukrainian forces pushing in kind of a northeasternly direction as some kind of ill-fated counterattack. That's the Russian propaganda line. But it seems like if you scroll down a little bit, that this footage is, again, a classic Russian propaganda move. It's actually from early February, or from late February, February 24th, as Ukrainian troops conducted a retreat out of Lastokichne, right? That's why there were likely no vehicles, and they had to move through 3 kilometers of open territory towards Orlivka while under Russian fire. This is much more in line with a retreat. Now, again, is this a retreat in good order? Not really, guys. This looks like kind of a rout. But it's a sign, again, that Ukraine, I don't think, was as prepared for a withdrawal from Avdiivka as they should have been. But the fact is that they were able to conduct the withdrawal on some level and have restabilized the front lines now. So I think, again, to me, this is the Russian propaganda machine. And if you go on X, I'll try to show you here. You can see it's just page after page after page of this video being reposted by accounts. And I think one of the things that happens right here, I'll show you just how bad it is. This is just with the hashtag Orlivka. See, these accounts are just reposting it dozens of times, talking about this. And so I think this is actually the Russian armed forces, or the RT, the Russian propaganda wing, trying to take this older footage of something that we knew was a bad situation for the Ukrainians, right? The retreat from Lastokichne, and spin it into being a sign of Ukraine's command being like dangerously incompetent. Again, this isn't to say that I think they did. I think Ukrainian command was ill prepared. I think they did fail to prepare a better plan for the withdrawal from Avdiivka. Obviously, you don't deploy your reserve element to stabilize the situation when it's going according to plan. But that said, this isn't a reflection of the present reality. And the present reality is that Russian forces seem to have stalled out. And there's a lot more footage out there of Russian forces getting smoked, which we covered yesterday on combatvetnews.com. It seems like they're having a real rough time. Anyway, guys, that is all I had. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. And thanks to all the members of combatvetnews.com. Seriously, your support means the world to me. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.